Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Pena, Director of Inclusion and Awards Liaison for the Golden Crown Literary Society. And I want to welcome you to the GCLS Members Online Book Club for April. Hopefully, we've all recovered from the April Fool's jokes and pranks. And if you celebrate Easter, that you'll be able to enjoy the festivities this weekend. But today, before we get started, let's have a word from our wonderful sponsor.
The night air was crisp, but the stars shone brightly and the temperature was warm enough that she'd eschewed a winter coat. Emma briefly closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. Snippets from the campaign trail scrolled like a highlight reel through her mind. The endless speeches, interviews, debates, and fundraisers. The late-night strategy sessions. The sleepless road trips, the concerns for her safety as death threats rolled in. But first and foremost, she saw the faces of the people she'd met along the way. They were white, black, and brown. They were gay, lesbian, straight, queer, bi, pan, and transgender. Each of them had a story they wanted to share with her, a need they hoped she would address. She would carry them all with her.
Hi, my name is Lynn Ames. I'm the author of 16 novels, including my latest 46, which follows the 46th President of the United States, Emma McMaster, as she begins her term in office. And you'll also get to meet Palmer Estes, a 4-star general who is really badass. Let me just say that. In any event, it's a real treat to spend time with these characters. I enjoyed every minute I had with them. And if you really want to enjoy 46, the thing you need to do is to listen to the audio version, which is narrated by the fabulous award-winning narrator, Abby Craden. You can find it on my website, www.lynames.com.
So everyone, today we have an extra special treat for you. For the very first time on GCLS Book Club, we are featuring a professional audiobook narrator. Abby Craden will be talking to us about her incredible career, and I am so excited. I've been talking about this for a long, long time. So first, I do want to go over a few housekeeping matters so that everyone will know what to expect and to help keep things running smoothly. All right, so this session is being recorded. So if you miss parts or you want to watch again, it will be on the goldencrown.org website soon. All of our attendees should be on mute. That will help to minimize unintended noise and make sure everyone can hear. In the background, other members of our GCLS committees, to include Casey Luck and Christelle, will be assisting and helping things run smoothly. So I'm sending a big thank you to them in advance. However, this is not a one-sided interview. We hope that you'll ask questions and interact with Abby by typing in your question in the chat function. In that chat area, I do ask that you please double check that your question will be seen by everyone and not get sent directly to our guests. This will help us queue up the questions and avoid repeats for the sake of time. I may ask you to unmute and ask your questions directly to Abby, so we do hope that you will interact with Abby. Excuse me. Yes, so one of our goals for the GCLS Online Book Club is to promote our wonderful guests and their fantastic work, but to also continue to build our community. Thank you for being members. Finally, as I often like to point out, emergency exits and restrooms are located somewhere in your homes, socially distanced coffee shops, or wherever you may be tuning in. Now on to the fun stuff. I want to formally introduce our guest. Abby Craden originates from New York, but after many years on the West Coast, she now calls Los Angeles home. Ms. Craden has been performing and storytelling in all of its various forms for over 20 years. She has recorded hundreds of audiobooks, winning 2 Earphone Awards and named one of the best voices of 2012 by Audiophile magazine. Her voice can be heard in national commercials, animation, video games, and many TV shows and films. Everyone, please welcome Abby Craden.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi.
Oh, we're so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation. It's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So Abby, how did you get started in the world of audiobook performing?
Well, I was a theater actor and trying to make it in the business, and you know, the film and TV world is very challenging. And I was in an acting class, and someone said, "You should do voiceover. You have a really interesting voice." And I was like, "Okay." And then I started breaking into that world a little bit. It took a long time. And then I had a friend who's a wonderful narrator, Robert Sundin, who's a great classical theater actor. And he said, "You know, I can help you get into audiobooks. Let me help you make a demo, and I'll walk it into Random House, and I'll give you some, you know, coaching." And that was many years ago, before the whole kind of digital download and easy accessibility. So it was kind of at the beginning of the audiobook wave, and I caught it very early. So I was really lucky to have someone help me and sort of parlay it. And then I got a book, and then it just kind of began to build over time. So, you know, not overnight, but it built, you know.
And we're so lucky that you did. Now, did that whole process kind of start in New York, or was that more when you moved to California?
It was in California. I really left New York early. I went to school at BU in the acting program. I decided I wanted to come to LA and be a movie star. And so I drove cross country, and I landed here very young. And it was all, my career has really been, I've been in LA for many, many years now.
Oh, wonderful. It's very, I love Southern California. It's a lot warmer than Illinois, I'll tell you that.
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. So how much time do you normally have to record a book? Let's say if you're doing one of our Women Loving Women romance books, and, you know, just an average, how long would you say it would take to record?
You know, I like to spread it out so I don't have these long days in the booth, because I think I do better when I do like 3 or 4 hours. So I would say about 6 days takes me to do an average size, maybe 10-hour book. And I get up early in the morning because I'm like, my brain is better, my voice is more fresh in the morning, and I just kind of get in there early. But I like to spread it out if I can. You know, you have a deadline of when it's due, and I can look at my schedule and see what else I have. And I kind of have a big calendar, and I just give myself the time that I want to do it, so that I can be my best when I do it. Yeah.
Yes. Now, Catherine Dine, she kind of sent in some emailed questions earlier. Do you kind of know in advance how many chapters you'll be doing? Or I know you said you set yourself an amount of time, but do you set how many chapters go through on a given day?
It's not really chapters, it's actually like hours. I know how many hours it takes me. It's about, for 1 hour recorded, it takes me about 2 hours to do it, just because you make mistakes, and you know, you can't, sometimes I take lots of breaks. Like, I'm my own disciplinarian, so I have to make sure that I'm focused. And yeah, so it takes like maybe 2 hours to one recorded. So I just kind of know how many hours I have to put in, and then I'll work longer if I have to, but I like to kind of take it easy if I can.
Oh yeah, I think that's a smart. If I were doing it, that'd be a smart way to do it. And I will say, if I try to record something, I would have cats meowing in the background. I'd have the neighbor's lawnmower going off somehow.
I do have it. I have a dog who likes to bark, so it's like, it's a pause. And I have a son who's now 16 and like tromping through the house, and I'm like, can you hear everything? You know, so I'm like, walk quietly, don't slam the dish, you know.
Right.
So, and he's home doing school, so he's not gone. He's usually gone at school, but he's been home doing Zoom school, so, you know.
Yeah. So along those lines, I did hear in a different interview that you have your own home studio. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have like a robotic pet hand coming from your studio just to keep the dogs quiet? Like, how is your studio set up, and how do you manage all of that?
Well, I have an office in my house, and I have a voiceover booth that was built into the corner of my office. And I, this time when I moved into where I am now, I made sure I had a window, so I had light, because there was many years where I was in like a very dark space. I'm like, this is not good for me. So I have a light in my door, I have a window in my door, and I have a window to my outside, so I have lots of sunlight. And I have my computer like my Mac on the outside with some of my recording stuff. And then I have a mirrored Mac inside with my iPad, which I read on my iPad. And then I use Pro Tools. So I kind of am mirroring the Mac that's outside my booth so there's no noise. And I have a microphone that hangs kind of right in front of me.
Oh,
and
wow.
my booth is sort of soundproof, but not entirely. So when the dog barks, I kind of knock on the glass, you know, and try to just stop it and take a pause. Yeah.
Oh, it's really cute. Sorry with the dog. I love animals, so anytime that pops up, I'll gush over it. So, all right. So when I picture narrators preparing for a recording, I envision like color-coded diagrams, investigator type walls of character sketches, a voice director, a conductor, like waving their magic wand to get all these different voices out the narrator. So how do you manage to prepare for the many different voices of the characters along with the narrator voice?
Well, you know, it's really all of those things are inside my head. You know, I don't know why, but I have an ability to kind of keep that all together unless it's super complicated. I did a fantasy book where there were so many characters. I was like, I had like little stickies or post-its kind of on my wall, especially like word pronunciations, because I would hit a name and I'm like, what is that name again? You know, and I'd have it sort of accessible to me. But, you know, I read a book and I prep it and I get a feeling for the voices, especially the main characters. And I kind of know how to use my voice in the different ranges of it. And then I also, sometimes I use images, or I think of like a famous person like Kathy Bates or somebody who I'm like, oh, that reminds me of her. And I'll just get an image in my mind and it'll kind of create a little bit of a different sound. And I really just follow my intuition. I don't second guess too often. I trust myself to kind of feel what's right. I sort of feel into the book. When I read a book, I get a sense of the characters. It just sort of comes through me a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, that is pretty awesome. And hats off to you for being able to do it so well. So would you say in, let's say a book that's written in third person, would you say the narrator for the book, would that be done usually in your own natural voice, or do you try to choose how the narrator is going to sound too?
You know, when I read a book and if it's like yes, usually the narrator is my voice, but if it's a young adult book and it's a young girl, I do alter it a little bit. Or if it's like a mystery and I can feel like the main voice of the story is a little heavier or darker, I'll go a little deeper in my sound. I can kind of micro adjust, but I would say the narrator is usually me. And one of the characters is always me. I always go, that's me. That's my voice. Like I don't have to do anything. That's me. And then I'll kind of like sort of micro adjust for a little higher, a little lower, a little huskier, a little faster, more clips. You know, I kind of have my repertoire of things that I can do.
That is
fantastic.
Yeah. So I kind of went on Facebook. There is an audiobook Facebook group, and I asked some people there what some of their questions they have, their burning questions that they have for you. And I have an author by the name of Jay, who you are, I believe you're very familiar with. She'd love to know whether there are certain kinds of voices or narrators that are better suited to some genres than others. Like, for example, does it take a different voice or skill set to narrate romance than, say, like a thriller?
I don't think it's a different skill set. I think you have to tune like an instrument to the overall vibe of the book. Like if the book is this mystery, like that's sort of, I just kind of feel that, like that's sort of where I'll go a little heavier in my voice. If it's a comedy or something light, I kind of get that feeling inside of me and just hope it kind of comes through. I don't really think how I'm going to do it. It's just sort of where I go when I do it, because the book instructs me, the book informs me. It's really the author. The authors really tell me everything. And I, like a detective, I kind of look for clues of characters. It's my favorite when someone is very descriptive about a voice. You know, she sounds like whiskey, or you know, she's like light and airy, like the wind. I'm like, oh, I get that. I can totally grab onto that and make that happen now. So I love that because it helps me. You know, if an accent is like very specific, I'm like, okay, I have to do an accent now. Yeah.
So you mentioned talking with the authors. So I was going to ask that next is, do you often get to talk to the authors beforehand? And what are some of the things that you do actually talk about? If so.
I don't actually. You get a contact with like the producer or a contact for the author. And sometimes it becomes direct. Now with Facebook too, we can all kind of find each other and ask questions. But it's sometimes through another, like an agent or somebody. And my questions are mainly about a character's accent, if I'm not clear, or a word I can't find out, or there's something. And in a book like a fantasy where words are made up or whole languages, I need help. So the authors that I sometimes speak with are people who have like a fantasy book. I'm like, just call me and let's like tell me and let me listen and record you, or send me an MP3 so I can hear it. So there's like a varied ways it's done, but I don't have direct conversations, a lot of emails. I would like to. I'm open to that. I think that would be really fun. I love getting to know authors. I think it's like a real collaboration when I get to do their book. So
yeah, I was going to ask you, which ones do you feel that are most fun or easygoing, and which ones are, you could say to yourself, oh, we could just be friends if we were closer or whatever.
I don't really have any time when I've talked to anybody, but like EJ, I know she's on here. I think she seems really cool. Like I would like to talk to her sometime. I just like, but I don't, I haven't really had any conversations. There's a little bit of a distancing. So it's kind of like we know each other through our work more than personally.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm going to head over just to see if there's some questions that the audience has so far. I don't want to get too far behind with them. So we have Lauren who asks, basically, how do you do it? How do you not get lost with all the voices? And especially when you have to do scenes with several characters at once. Like, how do you keep track of that?
Well, sometimes I mark things on my script, and there's a program called iAnnotate where you can put your digital PDF, and then there's like highlighting or pens, and you can make notes. So sometimes I use that if it gets complicated, but I can kind of keep track of it, and I can stop and go back and fix it. I kind of get in a flow with like a when there's people talking to each other, and I don't know. I can't really answer that. It's one of my weird skills. I don't know. Everybody has interesting skill sets, so that doesn't trip me up too much. But sometimes I do mark them if it gets really complicated.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to the fact that there are many narrators out there who are really professional actors, and this is what you do. This is either what you're trained to do or what you can do naturally. And I used to profess that I could try to be an audiobook narrator just because I read to my children when they were little. But hats off to you for all the work and preparation and skill that you put into all of this. So.
Well, it's been a great thing for actors, especially theater actors, because we're used to dealing with language, accents, keeping our voices healthy, maintaining long times of talking. So it's a beautiful, creative way for us to support ourselves, either between jobs or with theater, to do audiobooks. And I think it really does take skills. It's not, people often want to just like read a book and, oh, I could do this. And maybe they can, but I think now with all the character voices and really like bringing a book to life, it takes an actor, to do that. So we're lucky that it's become a way for us to earn money. And support ourselves.
That's so, I'm glad we get to reap the benefits of that.
Thank you. And I feel super lucky I think I said this somewhere else, but as an actor, to get to play all these parts, I get to be everybody. It's like, and I get to I get to be the director, I get to be all the parts, I get to do it exactly the way I want to do it on my time. And I like that. I like being in charge. I think actors often aren't in charge. People are telling you what to do or how to do it. And I really get to create the collaboration with an author. So that is a gift to me.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And it sounds like you are not, are you with a particular company, or are you kind of doing this? I kind of know the answer because I heard in a different interview, but how is that aspect of things? Are you with a specific company to do your audiobooks?
I have about 5 or 6 different companies that contact me. So I freelance. So I kind of know a couple months in advance. I have books on my schedule. Sometimes I don't. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to trust something's going to come. So something does. And then I get busy again. And I kind of go, oh, wow, I'm really busy. But my voiceover agent doesn't do audiobooks. I've kind of said, no, this is mine. Like, this is my business. And people producers contact me directly and I schedule it with them. And sometimes authors contact me directly and I actually produce the whole book for them, such as with Lynn's book. We did it together. So it just depends. So people can, I'm accessible, you know, through email and all that stuff. And if I'm interested, I'll do it. And I have time, I'll put it on my schedule. Yeah.
Awesome. So I know that many authors, especially ones that are in one way or another affiliated with GCLS, they don't have a problem like lifting up or promoting each other's work. Many of them are friends, they collaborate on projects with each other. Would you say that kind of in the voiceover or audiobook narration world, is it kind of the same way, or are you kind of have to be off in your little box together just because of the nature of your work?
I think it's that there's at Random House, when I work there's a green room and there's lots of different booths, and we actually, that's where a place where I would go before COVID to record, and it was such a relief because you get to see people. So we all kind of meet for tea during our sessions or have lunch together, and that's really beautiful. I miss like being with people. The hardest thing for me is being alone and working alone, because I think theater actors and actors are in general like to collaborate and bounce ideas, and it is challenging to work alone. So I've had to adjust and sort of get my introverted skills a little more up because that is not my nature. So yeah, but we help each other, but I don't think, we don't really talk to each other. I mean, there is a group, there's awards and there's people go to the Audies in New York and sometimes they hang out together. I kind of stay away. I don't know why. I'm not into, I have my foot in lots of different things. So I sort of keep myself a little bit untethered in that way.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. I'm sure many authors, where a lot of authors are introverted by nature. So I'm in my head, I kind of picture you having like virtual coffee chats with Lori Prince or Melissa Sternberg or, you know, those folks.
No.
But, yeah, but we definitely
if we
understand.
Communicate. Yeah, if we communicate, it's like through an email. If we're sharing a book and we have questions, we just email each other, you know, and sometimes send each other voice samples. Oh, you're doing it that way. Let me hear the sound of that, and then we communicate that way. But that would be fun. That would be that's a good idea. Yeah.
So we have Tressa, sorry. She asks, what are some of the aspects of narration work that you really enjoy?
Oh, well, I enjoy great writing. It's such a joy when I read a book that I'm really excited to narrate. Like I'm really excited to get going on it. I like coming of age stories. I like the personal journeys. I love memoirs because the author is like really, really personal. It's so interesting, unique, and I get to be their voice. So I get to sort of enter into their headspace and emotional space and world. So I would say any great writing is a joy to narrate.
Oh, that's wonderful. So we have Janice. She's asking, for which reason or reasons would you decline an offer or request? Because I know that you said you get requested sometimes, but what would prompt you to decline an offer?
Well, I would say the first thing is a political point of view that I don't believe in. I won't do someone's book that I just really can't support, like that.
Yay for 46.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I won't say who, but I will. I was like, I'm not auditioning for that. No, thank you. There's sometimes the sexuality, if it feels exploitive or just kind of like I just can feel like, no, it's too much. I won't do it. But I don't have a problem with sensual books. I did a lot of erotica when I first was starting out. If it's well written, great, you know. So.
Oh, so since you did mention erotica, so obviously with romance books, it does get a little hot and steamy sometimes, or most times in those stories. Do you find it difficult to kind of really accentuate those parts of the book, or I'm blushing right now just talking about it, but do you find it, difficult to do those parts?
No, it's enjoyable. No, I mean, I'm by myself, so there's nobody around me.
Right.
It'd be like me embarrassing myself. No, I think it's like, it's just, you just kind of go there. You're just sort of on the journey of the book, and that's part of the book. It's like sometimes there's murder in a book, sometimes there's like other things, but that's the beautiful part of it. So I enjoy it, you know. And maybe if there was somebody watching me, or like I mean, I know people are listening, but in the moment I'm recording it, I have no idea anybody's listening. I'm sort of in my own world. I might feel that, but I feel completely alone. And that's like it's so cool to see everybody here, because I feel there is no audience when I'm recording. I'm just by myself. And I have to remember that there's people who are going to be receiving this, and to like really give it my all, because there's somebody out there who wants to hear this and they're going to be affected by it. But when I'm doing it, I feel very alone. So it's kind of like I have to remind myself, you know, very, very oppositional to theater where you have an audience, or even film and TV where you have a crew and there's people there watching you, you know, just me.
Well, I hope I can speak for all to say that we definitely love you and love your work. And I really like that with audiobooks, you really provide access to books to some who may not be able to have the opportunity with just a traditional book, or being able to read it on an ebook. So again, hats off to you with what you provide to many. So with so we know you do different genres out there, and you also do traditional romance narrating. Do you find that there are great differences between narrating romances between two women versus those between a man and a woman? Well, besides the obvious little difference, but.
Well, I think there's more formula with male, female romance. There's a formula, which I think is kind of interesting, because women write them often, mostly where the man saves the woman. That's sort of like the theme that I see. Like he saves her from whatever, and then she wants to get married, and there's always in the epilogue there's children, and there's kind of like there's a little of that savior thing. Whereas in female romances, it's more like, do you get me? What's our relationship going to be like? How are we going to build our lives together? How are we going to know each other? It's more nuanced. I think there's not so much that kind of formula that exists. I mean, there is marriage and there is children, but it's the savior thing is different. Women don't need to save each other, but men come in and save, and it's like the Cinderella story. They swoop in and save her with money or with something, you know. So I would say that's the main difference. Yeah. And women write them. So I think it's interesting that that's what they, you know, women write the, you know, mostly. I don't know any male romance writers. I'm sure they're out there. But.
Yeah, we there are some. We actually had a male writer who actually won a Goldie Award during the 2020 award. So that was, I don't know if that was a first, but it was a first for me to see that. So we're really trying to branch out there. Author Lee Winter, kind of along those same line, well, in a sense, she'd like to know if you have kind of a mainstream male to female romance base of fans that are passionate about following you the way our lesbian fans do, or women loving women literature. There's those fans. In other words, is it just us? That's our question.
Well, kind of. It is just you. And I mean, I do have fans, but it's not the same. Like I have people who follow me and like my books, and I do all sorts of different kinds of books, but it is different. So I actually put the question, because people ask me all the time, what is it? And I'm like, I don't know, you know, so I would like to know from you all, what is it that makes you have me on and feel this way? Because I think it's really interesting. I have a few ideas, but I would love some feedback if anybody wants to share. I put it out there.
Yes, and I'm sure people can type in their answers to Abby as to why we love you so much. And I have Casey Luck, who's already on the screen right now, and she had a question. And if she wouldn't mind just unmuting herself, she can kind of ask what she wanted to ask.
Is that the one about, do you read the books first and then decide if you're going to actually narrate it? That was my question. It was badly written, but.
Oh, you know, I give a synopsis and a little piece of a book. But when someone's proposing it to me, I usually, this is the synopsis of the book, here's a sample of the writing, and then I make the decision. Yeah, so I can tell pretty quickly, and if I want to do it or if I have room in my schedule to do it. So I don't read the whole book beforehand, but I read a piece of it, and I get an idea of what it is and what it's going to ask of me. You know, sometimes if I get a book that or nonfiction with some very archaic things, I'm like, oh God, I can't do this. I can't look up 5 million words. You know, I just don't have my bandwidth. But yeah, I get a sense of it before I say yes.
Cool, that's cool. And thank you from the GCLS Book Club coordinator. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. GCLS really appreciate it. So,
thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see. So we have EJ Noyes in the audience, and she had a question that if EJ, are you comfortable with unmuting yourself to ask Abby your question?
I mean, I'm a huge video gamer, and I'm just curious, do you prefer narrating audiobooks or video games?
I would say audiobooks over video games. Video games, you go in and you don't know like what the game is, what the story is. You just go in and do your kind of, each line has a direction to it. The director's like, do it this way. So you might be in a big battle scene or a dialogue, and you have no idea who you're talking to or what the story is or even what the game is, because it's often secret. So it's not as a rich experience. And I love books. I've always been an avid reader, so I get to bring them to life, and that's really cool. I'm not a video gamer. My son is, but I'm not. So yeah, it's fun. It's a great part of just doing what I do. I love the variety that I get to do a variety of things.
Yeah, I was hearing that some narrators may not even know what the project is if it's a video game, because like you said before, it's kind of secret, and you know, unless it's like something big, you know.
Well, they actually have like if it's big, they have like a code name, like Rowboat, and you're like, what's Rowboat? You know, and it's some like, well, it's a Star Wars game. Okay, well, you know, now you walk in the session, and you're like, oh, I'm doing Star Wars, what? You know, so yeah, you don't. There's a whole, you have to sign an NDA. There's a whole thing with video games. It's very hush hush, and you don't have any story. You just walk in and kind of do your bit, and you're like, I hope that was good. I don't know what's going on. You don't have the context. Just, yeah.
So actually we have, if Lynn Ames is, yes, she's still here. She has a really good question from the chat, and do you mind asking her your question, Lynn?
I never mind asking questions. It's what journalists do. Hi, Abby. It's great to see you.
Hi.
Actually see you. I'll try to remember the question off the top of my head. I lost it in the chat somewhere, and I'm of an age where, you know, here what on the next. I asked, you know, has there been a book or books in your experience that has shocked you in some way or moved you in some way more than others? Surprised you in some way?
Yes. There's been many, but I would say like when I did Alone, EJ's book, I don't know why that book just kind of got under my skin. It surprised me. I read it and I was like, interesting. Oh, that was interesting to record. But once I started recording it, it sort of just took me on a journey, and I really, I just loved doing that book. It kind of went in an interesting direction, very deep for me. But there's memoirs often surprise me because I kind of like get inside the author's sort of skin a little bit more because the writing is so personal and I have a really interesting experience. But if the book is well written, I will go on a journey when I record it, and I kind of lose track of time, even though I'm doing all the technical stuff, which is very pleasurable, and I love when that happens. Yeah. It's almost like when you're reading a book and you're like, oh my God, 3 hours went by. It's not exactly like that because I have to punch myself in and I have to be careful of words and not drop my endings and keep my voice even and all those things. But I can definitely like kind of lose track of time.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And there, I will just to chime in a little bit. I remember listening to your narration of Alone, and I was traveling from Illinois to California. I can't remember where it was, but I was in Arizona or somewhere. I was literally alone. There was nobody on the road, and it was just really gripping to be able to hear that story and a lot of silence and just your own thoughts and listening to your voice. And I always say a great actor is someone where, you know, because I always think about the process of acting, but when you just completely forget they're an actor and you have just really immersed in the story and the characters is always good. So.
Yeah, I think there's also something like, instead of like in the theater, like you have to extend out all your energy and you have to like reach an audience and you have to use your voice in a very specific way. When you're on the microphone, it's very intimate and very quiet, and I can be very quiet, and it can be kind of sensitive in that way, which is different than when you're trying to extend out and reach people in a bigger space, or even like on a film set, or you're talking to somebody across the room. You're just on this microphone, which is like an interesting, it's just very intimate. It's different. So it gives you that opportunity to be closer in some ways.
So we are just over halfway through our time. So this is really a good time where I like to do a little speed round of questioning. And it's where I will just be asking you a series of questions, kind of in quick succession, and you just answer, you know, the first thing that pops into your head. You know, they're pretty simple questions. So,
okay.
What is your favorite food?
My favorite what?
Favorite food.
Favorite food. Ooh, chocolate.
Oh, yes. What's your favorite season?
Spring.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
I've become a morning person.
Are you a dog person, a cat person, horse, unicorn, reptile person, or all five?
I would say all five, but I have dogs. I have 2 dogs.
Yeah. Favorite music genre?
Kind of folk indie rock. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. And finally, in honor of the late James Lipton of Inside the Actors Studio, what is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
That is the best one. That's awesome. One of, let's see, so Marianne Bosworth, she and some others here in the chat were asking, how do you care for your voice? You know, I'm sure you're having to do quite a bit of narration. So how do you care for your voice?
I would say getting good sleep and drinking. I usually drink lots of tea when I'm working. I'm lucky I don't really have vocal problems. My voice doesn't get tired. Only if I choose a very raspy sound, which I will regret sometimes, like, what have I done? Because now I have to do this for a long period of time. But yeah, if I just have tea and I'm just kind of rested, I'm good to go. And no red wine the night before I start something.
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh. So there was since you were talking about having with the raspy voices, Jude in the audience is asking, how difficult are male voices for you? So she says one of the things she loves with your narrations is that when there are men in the story, she sometimes forgets that you're a woman that's narrating it. So how difficult is that for you?
It's not. I just have to be careful to not get too low. Like, I can listen back to some of my things and I'm like, oh, that was too low. Like, I can, because I don't think you have to go so low, but I have a deep voice and I can kind of get that male sound easily. So it's not too hard for me. It is hard when there's a bunch of men talking and I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? You know, that is the most challenging, even for women too, but it's harder if there's like 5 men in a dialogue. And I'm like, how am I going to differentiate those voices and make them clear so they all sound a little bit different, and it's not obnoxious to listen to. So I have to figure that out sometimes. But I don't find the male voices, it's not hard for me to do that.
Do you prefer reading or listening to books? You know, well, first of all, are you an avid reader? And if so, do you prefer reading them or listening to them?
I prefer reading, I would say. I do listen to nonfiction because I can do it when I'm exercising or cooking or doing something like that. But I'm a reader. I grew up reading. I grew up going to the library and getting a huge stack of books and closing my door and like reading all day. Like that was my pleasure to me. So when I read for pleasure, I read an actual book. I can't read on an iPad because I use the iPad for work. So I read books. I have a stack of books on my bed and kind of cracking into them, you know. Yeah, I love to read. Listening is great, but it's just not reading because I do it. I just don't. Sometimes I do if I'm on a car trip, but yeah, mostly I'll read.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that makes total sense. So let's see. So going back to with the audiobooks, how long would you say it takes generally from the time you record a book and send it off to post-production to the time it's available for purchase on Audible or a different producer?
I actually don't know. I would say on average a month, maybe 6 weeks. It depends because I'm given a deadline for my work, and then once my work is done, it goes to a post-production, often that I don't do. And then I kind of like sort of forget about it. I start the next one, and then I get pickups where I do my fixes. And then I think they have to, you know, it depends on the deadline of the book. If the book is coming out exactly when the book is coming out, they want it happening at the same time. Sometimes it follows shortly after. So I would say like maybe a month to 6 weeks after I record, the audiobook comes out.
That's a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, maybe 2 months. It's not that long a process, actually. Once it's recorded, I don't think the editing takes all that long, the post-production work. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. When authors have upcoming releases, they usually receive copies of their new books. And so I was wondering, do you receive the finalized copy of the audiobook?
One company will send me the actual like discs, but they don't do discs anymore. So no, I wish I did, but I have an Audible account and I'll get credits, and I'll like sometimes if I want to listen to something I did, I'll listen that way, or I'll tell the producer, can you send me a link to the book and I'll get it. But they don't send it to me to listen to. No, I just sort of do and go, I hope that was good. You know? Like, hope it all worked. Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll listen and check back and be like, oh yeah. But I don't get to listen to it and final approve it or anything. You just do it and it goes out in the world. Yeah. It's very fast. There's no rehearsing. You know, it's not like a play where you rehearse for weeks and you just get in there and go. And so I think whoever is narrating has to really have fast skills and be able to trust that they're doing it right, because you have such a small amount of time to get it done. And you don't want to spend hours grueling over a sentence, or, you know, you have to just kind of go. Yeah. And
I think you said earlier in the interview that you read the books first, you know, just I'm assuming to get a feel for everything, but how long does it take you really to prep then? You got to read the book and whatever else
my prep is reading it, actually. So I read it on the iPad and I make notes as I go, and sometimes I make a side list of words I need to look up. But I've been doing it a long time, so I have a shorthand. I think there's people who probably are newer to it, but it's like you. And in the beginning, I definitely would comb and go slower, but I kind of know. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm going to have to do. And then I know if I have some questions, I have to get them in advance. So when I begin, I have answers from an author kind of ready to go, or a dialect that I need to look up and kind of go, what is that dialect? But yeah, so I would say an average prep is like a week, 5 days of reading a little bit every night and sort of taking the book in and letting it sort of sit with me as I read it.
Has there been a time where you maybe have read a book that isn't an audiobook, and you have you ever reached out to an author and say, hey, we should make this into an audiobook? Or Jude kind of asked that question in the audience. So. Oh,
I haven't, no. But I haven't been reading a ton of fiction, which I really think is more like what I love to narrate. Been reading a lot of nonfiction just lately in my own self-education. So no, I haven't, but I would. If I found something and I'm like, they haven't recorded this, oh, maybe I should. I would do that, yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Terry in the audience asked, is there like a magical number of characters? I'm guessing she means the limits of characters that how many characters is there a limit to how many characters you would have in a book as far as being able to narrate it? There's 13 different voices that you have to do.
You know, it's really the author. I just have to, my job is to bring the book to life. So whatever the author gives me, I have to figure out. The least amount of characters, the better for me, just because it's so complicated. But yeah, if there's 50, there's 50. I mean, I did a fantasy book recently and there was like, wow, there were so many characters. And sometimes if they're lesser, like there was like 5 soldiers and, you know, and they talked a little bit, but it wasn't throughout the whole book. I can see they're not the main characters and I don't have to spend as much time figuring them out. I can kind of let that go a little bit and I need to focus on the 30 main characters. So, you know, I have to, whatever the book, you know, shows up as, I have to figure out how to bring it to life.
So when, since you mentioned working on the fantasy book with a lot of characters, would that be a time that you would, like, how do you figure out if they have some kind of strange accent or language, or how do you figure out how that's going to sound?
You have to talk to the author. I mean, that's actually a book where I did have a conversation with the author, going back and forth, and she sent me MP3s of like how you pronounce her language, because it was really complicated. It was a whole like world building. So, and then these were books that were recorded about 10 years ago. So I listened to some of the original narrator. I was like, I wonder what she did, just to hear some of the words and stuff. I thought that was helpful for me. But yeah, if I don't know, I have to have the author tell me, and then hopefully send me, you know, something. Sometimes I'll write it out, or they'll and I've had some phone conversations where they can say it for me and they can hear it. I would hate to do something, especially a main character, and pronounce the name wrong, or, you know, that would not be good for me. So I have to make sure I'm clear when I'm starting something.
So as I was looking through your many books that you have on Audible, I think there's close to like, there's many. And some of them you are collaborating with other, I'm not sure if it's a collaboration, but there are books where you're narrating with other narrators. Is that more of a collaboration? Do you do your recording separately or together, or how does that work?
It is a collaboration, but we don't really work together. We work separately. So I have my chapters. The collaboration is more like a few emails or sending each other a voice sample for a character, or we have to pronounce this, or I'll listen to her and go, oh, that's what her voice sounds like. Okay, so I can kind of, when I'm doing her character in my chapters, I can kind of imagine that sound. But it's more we do it separately in our own world, and then the producers piece it together. So yeah, and hopefully it works and sounds good. Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear. I wanted to know, let's see, I think you kind of mentioned this somewhat, but so one of my favorite pastimes is to kind of listen to an audiobook while I'm doing something relaxing, like puzzles or doing something with yarn. And what are some of the things that you like to do for self-care, really?
Well, I'm a yogi, so I love to do yoga and meditate. My sort of daily self-care. I love to hike. I love to exercise. I ended up buying like a rowing machine and an exercise bike, you know, so my house has like that piled in it now. Like hiking with my dogs is a really good way to unwind. I love to take baths. I can get onto a Netflix series, and that's sort of a good like let my brain go. Have a glass of wine, decompress.
Yeah. Is there anything that you're binge watching right now?
I finished The Flight Attendant, which I thought was really like kind of fun and interesting on HBO Max. I love Ted Lasso. You know, I actually kind of been more drawn during this year to lighter stuff, because I love dark mysteries, but just because the world is kind of heavy during the election too, I was like, give me something light. Like I think I watched Ted Lasso during the election, you know, here, and it was helpful. So yeah, you know, I did all of Schitt's Creek. I caught up on all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I know that's one I need to start. I keep hearing great things about that one. I had to get.
It's good. It's easy going. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Let's see. And you do. Are you still teaching yoga classes? I know you were a while back, but I wasn't sure with the pandemic and things like that.
Yeah, I did a few
That's
on
cool.
Zoom, and I was like, the Zoom thing is so weird to me. Like, I wanted to teach yoga, and I became certified because I love yoga, and it was a really, really monumental and some changes in my life and helped me. And I ended up getting certified and wanting to teach. And some of it was I wanted to get out and be with people. I'm like, I can't, it was sort of helping with the solitude as going out and being a yoga teacher and touching bodies and being in a room with people felt really good to me. So when I went on Zoom, I was like, no, this is the same thing, looking at a camera. So I just started teaching again because things are opening up in Los Angeles. We're kind of moved out of the red tier into the orange, or we're moving. So we're having live in person. So I did one class with some people, and that was great. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it's great to be back to at least a little bit of normal from
for
see
sure.
people again.
Yeah.
So speaking of being, a little uncomfortable, not too long ago, I was kind of Facebook stalking you, I'll admit. A lot of people do, it's not my fault. I recently saw that you posted a photo of your son driving, and if you're okay talking about this, but how has it been having a child who drives now? I can.
Well, he sort of drives. He has his permit, so he drives with me.
Got you.
I really like being driven around. So this is like, I'm like, that's really cool. He's 16, but he, COVID kind of happened when he was 15 and a half to get his permit. So he wasn't ready. And I think this whole year has kind of delayed the teenagers a bit. So he's gonna take his driving test in a couple months. So he is driving with me in the car and with his dad.
Okay, well that's
yeah. Good. But it's cool. It's cool. I'm happy. I'm really excited for him. I think it's really awesome that he's going to get to do that soon and have more independence.
Well, thank you, and good luck to him on his driving test. I've tried teaching both of my children, and they did really well. But I was like, fearing for my life a little bit.
Yep.
I want to know, well, for the audience or for those that are desiring to break into the world of audiobook narration, what can you offer for some advice for them?
Well, I would say listen to all different kinds of audiobooks and the great narrators and see what genre you feel like you fit into. Is it children's books or is it mystery? Because you kind of take your voice and I think I'm a little bit unique that I got to do lots of different categories and genres. Most people do sort of one thing, although I would say I've done more romances than anything else. But the kind of voice that you have lends itself to different kinds of things. So I would sort of figure out, what is it, nonfiction? Is it a political thriller? Like, what is your voice type, and how could you bring a book to life? And listening to great ones, so you kind of get what it is people do and how they do it. And then ACX has lots of books available that you could do a royalty share and see if you could get, but you have to also produce it and do all the posts. So you have to know a post-production company that you could send and you have to know how to record it. I think that's hard to do if you're a beginner at it, but yeah, that's what I would say.
And you don't do the post-production part or do you sometimes do?
Sometimes. If someone comes to me directly and wants to work with me, I have a person that I use to send all the post-production stuff out to. And I would like to do that more, actually. Who needs a middleman? Like, I can do that. So I have a person. It would be exactly the same sound because it's me in my booth I use my own equipment. It's my own thing. And then I just send my stuff out to somebody and they do the post-production and sort of fix anything. But yeah, so.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So as we're kind of rounding about to the end of our time, what's coming up next for you? Or what are you working on currently?
Well, I had a few days off, which was really nice.
Nice.
And yes, but I'm starting EJ's next book, which I'm super excited. Pas de deux soon. I'll have to learn how to say it before I do it. And I think I'm doing Jay's short collection of short stories, maybe I just found out I'm doing, I'm excited about. So those are a couple things that are on my schedule that I'm going to start in the next week and a half, 2 weeks.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't wait. Where can we find your audiobooks? I know that there's Audible. and maybe some of your other work too.
Well, I have a website, abbycraden.com, and it has just a bunch of different things that I do. I do a lot of voice work in film and TV. I do a lot of video games and commercials. Just kind of has an overall. I think Audible is kind of the main site to find things. I know there's other sites too. Yeah, I would say Audible is kind of the main one. I don't really know what other sites are out there, but.
Okay, yeah. So earlier you asked, what is it about Women Loving Women fiction audience that draws your audience to you, I should say. And so some of these comments have been that it's your voice and the way you bring your characters to life. Go figure. And you make a great book even better. Definitely good voice acting, the versatility, the clarity, and the empathy that is felt in each book. Melba says, for a non-English native speaker, that you are easy to understand and follow and feel. Laura says that she loves your performances. Every character feels different, and you have a wonderful, beautiful voice. And I'm going to make you gush here, get a little, hopefully you love all the.
I wasn't fishing for compliments.
No. Yes, but I do want to point out one that I thought was really special, but there's a person here who doesn't want to be named, but she says that she's really grateful for professional narrators like yourself. She says, for the visually impaired, your voice brings books to life in a way that computer-generated voice can't. As a visually impaired author, she can say that having her own work produced in Audiobook really just brought tears of joy to her. So your work really is important.
Thank you. I think that the most important thing for me is to, when I do a book, is to bring it to life, is to have people could feel the book, feel the story. That's just sort of the way I operate as a person. I want to communicate the emotion. I want people to feel like they're in the room with me, and that makes me very satisfied as an artist. And also, the writing has to be great, but also it's a gift that we get to then bring that next layer in of performing it. I think that's really interesting about audiobooks and different than just reading a book. So, thank you.
Yes. Yes, and we definitely love and are thankful for our talented authors, and are so very grateful for audiobook narrators that can really bring those stories, no matter the genre, to life. We're so appreciative. But sadly, we are at the end of our time. I want to thank all of you in the audience for joining us and participating. And a very, very special thank you to you, Abby, for taking the time to join us and for sharing with us this afternoon, or night, or morning, or wherever you are in the world. It was such a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
We'd also like to thank again our sponsor for this event, Lynn Ames, and her book 46, where you can find. I believe it's lynames.com. I believe that's correct, and it's also, of course, narrated by our special guest, Abby Craden. And let's see if I can get this thing working. I'm always messing up here. But I do want to we'll let you know that we will be back next month with the GCLS Online Book Club with author Cheryl A. Head. And that date is set for Saturday, May 1st at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You can register for that book club meeting through our website under the events section at the bottom of the GCLS homepage, found at goldencrown.org. And we also appreciate your feedback and ideas about the book club. And we have a GCLS Members Online Book Club private Facebook page. And it'd be great if you could join that page and tell us your thoughts and be able to see ahead of time what we have scheduled. So thank you again, Abby. Thank you to everyone for joining us. And I wish you all a wonderful Easter if you celebrate. And you all take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abby.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you.